Welcome to the LA Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Sara Skelton. Today on the show, my twin, one of my favorite realtors of all time, the one, the only, Kenya Reeves.
Yay! Hello. My husband will kill me if we don't add that the hyphenated last name. It's Kenya Reeves-Costa.
Oh, Kenya Reeves-Costa. We also have Justin.webb, my partner in crime at the Skelton Group, also in studio. Yay! So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the LA Real Estate Podcast. I know we took a little bit of a hiatus because the world was crazy, but we're back. We're back. We're fully vaccinated.
Yes, ma'am.
In studio, in person. It feels so good to be around people.
Oh, hallelujah.
So funny story when I first moved to LA, because, so everybody has different theories on the vaccine and some people are scared. I'm pro-vaccine. And when I first moved to LA, I actually signed up for an experimental flu shot study because they paid like a couple grand. So I would go in a room in like kind of beside a warehouse, and they're like, "Oh, this is super legit." And I got a flu vaccine, and then they would call me every week for a couple months and just be like, "Do you have any flu symptoms?" They'd be like, "No." "Okay, great. We'll talk to you next week." And then they sent me a big check.
That is amazing.
I know.
Yeah. So you don't know what you've got going on, but you're probably immune to everything. You're like an X-Man.
Yeah, they could have been mixing something up in their kitchen. I don't even know what they put in me.
You know what? When we first moved here, we do anything for a couple of grand.
Right. This was a long time ago. A drummer wasn't making a whole lot of money. You do what you need to do to get through.
Yes, you
what
do.
you need to get through.
Yes.
So Kenya, oh God, it's so good to see you.
It's good to see you.
So
I'm
Kenya's
happy to
my
be
twin.
here.
We have the same birthday.
Yes, we do.
And the same year too, right? 78?
78, but we're technically one day apart, I believe.
Oh, right.
I think you're the 27th and I'm
Yes.
the 28th.
Yeah.
But we decided early on that we were twins.
That's so awesome.
And if you could see us, you would find that hilarious.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So Kenya is a power agent. She's got a big team. She's a top producer. She's done incredibly well. How long have you been in real estate?
15 years.
15 years. And it's kind of a small community with the real estate. There's a small amount of real estate agents that do a lot of the business. When I first got my license, I started with Keller Williams, and I had an open house. And Kenya was at the office, and I was like, "Hey, you should come to my open house." So she came like 2 minutes before the end of the open house. And we sat there and we drank wine for hours.
Yes.
And just talked.
Yes. And I ate up all of your cheese and all of your grapes.
It was amazing. It was like my favorite open house, but we've been friends ever since.
Yeah.
And Kenya's a wonderful. It's what I really love about you. There's so many things I love about you, but you're very inspiring. You're always bringing up new agents and mentoring new agents and bringing them on your team, and so positive. You're such a positive presence and such a positive person. And that's what I love so much about you. You're very optimistic, but you also know your stuff when it comes to real estate.
Well, thank you.
You're a great agent.
Among the people that she mentored is myself. Thank you for that, Kenny.
I didn't even know. Did I know that?
I don't know. Yeah. Justin was my mentee.
That's amazing.
I had so many, at KW, we all come from KW at some point. It took me months. Nobody would be my mentor. You go around and ask everybody. And I was like, "Oh, I'm full. I asked Kenya, and she's like, "I'm full." And then, I don't know, I just kept following up with her. And then she ended up coming around and giving me the chance. But
that's amazing.
But what was interesting is in that first interview, like I'd met with all these other people. They give you a personality test.
Yeah.
And they're basically like, "Oh, you shouldn't be in real estate." It's a lot of really outgoing personalities and like really salesy kind of people. And you both know me pretty well. I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they say that I've got to go knock on people's doors. They say I got to go call people and bother them. And Kenya's like, "You don't have to do any of that. You just got to find your own way to do it."
Yeah, it's
And
so
she's
true.
100% right, and I appreciate that advice.
Oh, it's so true. There's different types of real estate agents. Kenya and I are very. I just think we love people.
Right. Social agents.
We're social agents. We love people. We have a great network, and we just make friends and love being around different types of people. And that's how we do our business. And it's mostly now, I would expect your business, like mine, is mostly referral based now.
Absolutely.
And that's a
about
wonderful
90%.
thing. Yeah. So the marketing and stuff, you'll see there's different agents and everybody does their own thing. But if you find what you're good at, for me, I feel comfortable. I feel totally comfortable around brand new people.
Yeah.
Around strangers.
So do I.
And I think that's been something that, what I love. And I think it's from, I grew up in a tiny little town.
Uh-huh.
I think I mentioned this on a previous podcast. So we only had approximately one new family move to our little town a year.
That's insanity.
And I would be so excited.
You were the welcome committee?
Oh my God. A new kid would come into our school. I'd be like, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? What do your parents do? Let's have a sleepover. Let's be best friends. So I just loved meeting new people. And I don't think that ever left me. I'm curious about people. And that's why being a real estate agent is so much fun, because you constantly, and no day is the same.
No day is the same. It's, in my opinion, it's the absolute best. And I don't know if you feel that way, Justin, like every day not being the same, but yeah. I thrive in the organized chaos that is real estate.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Another thing that I love about real estate is there's a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yep.
I did communications a long time ago, and I loved radio because you would go on the air, you would say what you wanted to say, boom, it was over, and you go on to the next day. I could not handle video stuff because you have all the pre-production, and then you have the recording, and it's not done yet. Then you have the editing, and everything drags on so long, and that drove me absolutely nuts.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I love real estate. So tell me a little about what your last year was like. Because you're a mom. Kenya's got a gorgeous daughter, Kennedy.
Oh, my goodness. My last year, what an insane year, It was funny because I remember, my year had a lot of personal things too. I sold my house. I bought a house. I changed brokerages. I put my kid in private school. My husband changed his post house. It was absolutely insane, coupled with the fact that real estate in the very beginning, right when we shut down, I had about I think it was 3 escrows. They all closed, which is not the story that most agents were telling. And I remember coming home and I said to my husband, I said, you know what? I need you to be prepared. I don't think I'm going to sell another house this year.
Right.
I feel like after these 3 escrows, it's probably going to get crazy. Yep. And I don't know, I'll have to find something else to do, but I'm going to do the best I can. Just no promises. To sum it up, I just got invited to speak at the National Growth Conference at my brokerage because I doubled my business.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
In a pandemic, nonetheless.
In the middle of a pandemic. And, I had a few moments where I thought I was really going to have breakdowns because it did not slow down. As a matter of fact, it got absolutely crazy. Then we had a lot of additional steps. We had these forms we had to fill out.
We were talking about that already.
The PEDS.
Those damn PEDS. It was what was the PED stand for?
I can't.
Pandemic,
I wish I
something,
could tell
something.
you.
It doesn't matter. They were the bane of our existence.
They were the bane. Also, it was crazy because I kept telling my clients when we would meet, I would say, I need you to picture this like a game show. You have 15 minutes to make the biggest decision of your life. And it was literally like that. We had sometimes, I remember one guy said, well, yeah, you can come, but you've got 5 minutes. You got to get in, you got to get out. I mean, what is that? 5 minutes to buy a $1 million home?
Investment. Yeah.
5 minutes. Yep. And so, all of that felt crazy. Thinking back on it, some of it was pretty great because having alone time in a property And knowing that the knowing of making the decision was great, I think, for clients, because it was yes or no.
Yeah.
Yes or no.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we all kind of came out of this with a lot of great practices, pre-inspections, pre-disclosures, a lot of great practices came from that. My team and I became very efficient when it comes to scheduling, drive time. All of that was sort of like, all right, well, maybe we'll, we are efficient.
Well, there was no open houses.
Yes.
So, often we'll do scheduling for our clients. So they'll send us maybe 4 or 5 houses they want to see. Okay, well, Saturday we can see 3 of them. 2 are on open houses. Go on your own, whatever you want. No open houses.
Yeah.
So everything had to be scheduled.
Everything had to be scheduled. My day started at 7 and ended at like 9, 7 days a week for the majority of last year.
Isn't that crazy?
It was insane. And just about 3 months ago, I changed my voicemail to say, I am not available until 9, I am not available after 7, and I am not available on Sundays. Because I had to. Yeah, like Maxine, I had to reclaim my time. I was really burning the candle at both ends.
We thought about that a lot. Clark, my husband, and I talked about that a bit as well. Because during the pandemic, and the thing is I felt like it was 10 times as many hours to do the same amount of thing that I could do in 2 hours previous to the pandemic.
Yep.
There was no real multitasking because, like you said, you have to show up. You've got to be there for exactly an hour. And then all the other stuff, the disinfecting, there were so many other steps. My work-life balance really suffered during the pandemic.
Yes.
Not to mention just the stress of being in a pandemic.
Yes.
We both have children.
Yes.
So my kids were having a really tough time with their mental health through the pandemic, going from very active lives to being in front of a screen that they couldn't even barely get on half the time because the school's websites would crash and stuff. So the work-life balance was really challenging. But I set some boundaries too. And that's something I'd never done before.
Speaking of boundaries, that was an issue. Boundaries went out of the window for everyone.
Right.
Because we didn't have like bookends.
Right.
Our clients weren't going to work at 9 and coming home at 5. There was an ebb and flow. You wouldn't hear from people. You'd hear, usually you had first thing in the morning, lunch hour, right after work. Then they got back to their regularly scheduled programs.
Right.
No one had a regularly scheduled program. So it was like, well, if they're working around the clock, then why shouldn't my realtor work around the clock?
Right.
I'm going to text my realtor at midnight and I'm going to say these things to my agent. And, they're texting. So you're trying to sleep and it's like, bring, 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 bring. I had to put my do not disturb on. I had never done that before. But then it would give me anxiety because I'd wake up in the morning, my do not disturb would go off and my phone would
go insane.
And then I'm like, where do I even start?
It's funny for me because my kids would go to bed, let's say 8:30 or something. And then I was like, okay, I can concentrate now.
Yeah.
So my clients would be like, are you sure you want to talk at 11 o'clock at night?
Oh,
I'm like,
your
are you
clients
up?
were so polite.
They're wonderful. I'm like, are you really awake?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, we can actually talk this through then. Mm-hmm. But it was just, you know what else? I just found that everybody was so in a daze, like what is happening to our world? And I think it was really important to have connection with people. So that's something I was really grateful to be doing real estate during the pandemic because I did feel like I was still connected to people.
Oh, we lucked out.
Yeah.
In the sense that a lot of people had to stay home. We actually didn't have a choice. And you can look at that as not being lucky. Like, like we had to have larger risk budgets than everyone else. I guess you could see it that way, but I looked at it as, oh my gosh, I get to leave. I get to see different people. I get to have these different experiences and we're all masked and it's all weird, but
it was weird for me. So oh, sorry, I totally interrupted
you. No, it's okay.
I was because I had kids at home and we didn't know that much about anything really. So I was we disinfected our groceries. Mm-hmm. And when I went to a listing, when I went to go do a viewing for a buyer or even a listing appointment, we would talk outside and I would go in separately from the client.
I would too.
Oh, you did?
I would too. I remember the very first pandemic showing I had never met these two before, adorable couple, and they're both standing outside, and I'm feeling sketchy. I'm like, they're sketchy, I'm sketchy. And not because they weren't amazing people, but because I thought I was going to die. And they were standing on the other side of the yard, and I was literally all the way on the other side yelling at them. Like, our conversation was yelling across the yard. And I'm like, okay, you go in. And then when you come out, I'll go in. Yeah, it was crazy. And then by the time they actually opened escrow, we were like, okay, we're wearing masks. We can all go into the house. But that was I think it had to have been like maybe first week after shutdown, new clients.
Yep.
So weird. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, we have Kenya here. We're going to be right back with a buyer's tip. And then we're going to talk a little about the market now and some areas that Kenya thinks are good buys. So yeah. So let's do that right after the buyer's tip. Here's a buyer's tip. Before you're about to close on a house, start a list of all the things you know you're going to need before you need them. For example, start looking at moving companies. Start looking at handymen or handy women. Start asking your friends for good plumbers, good electricians, good roofing companies, so that you already have a little list before you actually need them. And a good realtor will also have good recommendations. So I'm back here with my good friend Kenya. I also have my partner Justin in the studio. And I'm so glad you're here because we've been talking a lot about Northeast LA. I know you work in Northeast LA as well.
I do.
What other areas do you think right now in this market, currently end of 2021, are good buys? Where are you taking your buyers?
Can we talk about Glendale?
Yes, actually. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
We can talk about Glendale.
Okay, so current obsession is Glendale. I just bought in Glendale. Well, it'll be tomorrow. I'm celebrating my 1 year.
You bought in Glendale.
I bought in Rossmoyne.
You did?
I did.
Well, we've had David Robles on here before,
yes.
and he's the Glendale
I could throw
guy.
a stone and hit his house.
That's amazing. You shouldn't do that, though.
I know. Maybe not. Unless, I don't know,
Or
Dave,
maybe
unless
you
you do
should.
me dirty.
Yeah,
I'm
come on.
throwing a stone and I'm hitting your house. Yes. As a matter of fact, Dave Robles was the first person I contacted because I said, hey, Dave, I discovered this neighborhood. I'm completely obsessed with it. I know you live there. I sat in some of your classes. I know you've been trying to break in there for 17 years or however long he would talk about it. And I need you to let me know when a single story Spanish comes onto the market.
Oh, wow. Wow.
He says, okay, so I'm harassing him. But
we love Dave, by the way. Dave is amazing.
Dave.
Amazing.
Brilliant realtor. I learned a lot from Dave when I was a newer agent at KW. I used to adore his classes. And so Dave says, okay, sure, I'll let you know. And somehow, some way, another agent in the office had some listing that was sitting on forever, and it was just this perfect property. You could tell it just needed a few things, and I wound up buying that house. And Dave says to me, buyers are liars. You said you were looking for a 1-story and you bought that 2-story house.
Oh, that's
what are you
funny.
talking about? And I was like, well, you know how it goes. You know, we all know buyers can be liars, but on the journey, you learn things about your home personality. And my house personality said I needed 2 stories.
That is hilarious.
Yes.
Oh, poor Dave. Okay, so Glendale. Let's talk a little bit more about Glendale. Justin, do you have any buyers that come up and specifically are requesting Glendale right now?
Not at this particular moment, but Glendale is so many things, right?
So true.
You think about Glendale and you think about malls and car dealerships. A lot of people do, but there's all these different, different neighborhoods, including La Crescenta, that's got some of the best schools in the entire city.
I also love Adams Hill.
Ooh, people sleep on Adams Hill. Adams Hill is basically Neela.
It is.
It's basically Neela.
It is so cute.
And the thing is you ask Justin, do your clients specifically ask for Glendale? No, they don't. Because nobody really understands what Glendale is. And a lot of people have misconceptions about what Glendale is and who lives in Glendale and what your Glendale experience is going to be.
I think that's true. So I've sold a bunch in Glendale. I had the hippest, coolest clients, like unbelievably cool. Like everything they did was cool. Tattoos, their cars were cool. Like they were just unbelievably cool. Like I just wanted to hang out with them all the time. I was a little sad when the transaction
No, I
closed.
have clients like that.
I'm like, I just want to hang out with you guys. And we started looking at a bunch of places. They were outbid multiple times, and they really love mid-century. And all of a sudden, we're like, hey, why don't we just explore Glendale? They ended up buying in Glendale. They got an amazing deal.
Was it Chevy Chase Canyon?
It was close, just on the way in.
Because they have all the amazing mid-centuries.
It was amazing. They got a great deal. They're so happy there. In fact, it was funny because, again, all my clients end up being my friends. Right. And you know, it was during the pandemic, and we're talking on FaceTime chat on a Friday night at 9:00, and they're holding up their daughter to me, and I'm talking to her, and they're like, is it weird that on Friday nights we're FaceTiming our realtor? Like, is that crossing a boundary? And I'm like, no, I love you guys. You're so awesome. But again, that was when I started actually really discovering Glendale.
Yeah. I stumbled into it accidentally, looking for someone else. And drove through Rossmoyne, and I was like, and it's funny because people are walking their dogs, and it's super diverse, and there were kids outside, and I was like, what is this Shangri-La?
Yeah.
I need to get up in there.
Yeah.
And so I have had the most beautiful experience. My neighbor is also a realtor. My neighbor and her husband are drinking buddies.
That's amazing.
There's a kid that knocks on her door to ride bikes and scooter with my kid. You know, we go for nighttime walks. I mean, and
that's amazing.
I know people bag on the Americana, but I was an Americana fan before.
Oh, I love the Americana.
Thank you.
I'm going there this afternoon,
Thank you.
by the way.
I was an Americana fan when I was a cool kid in Echo Park. That was where I went for movies, for the fountain, for yoga out on the green.
It's got the dancing fountain.
It's got the dancing fountain.
My kids love that.
I'm sorry, don't tell anybody. I said this out loud. Cheesecake Factory.
I know. My
Thank
kids,
you.
When you're a mom,
Thank
that
you.
is the best place because they bring the bread out.
Yes, and nobody cares what your kids do at Cheesecake Factory.
No, they don't.
They don't.
Yeah. They can do whatever they want at Cheesecake Factory. But that bread, that keeps them happy.
Thank you. So,
that's hilarious.
I was always an Americana fan. And then we started looking at different neighborhoods. And I started telling my clients about it. So I'm like, whoa, what is this Kenneth Village? And what is this, Chevy Chase Canyon? And oh my gosh, look at this. So I've been Verdugo Woodlands. I was blown away by all of the different feelings you get from each pocket.
So, and there's a couple other things about Glendale. One of them is that we've mentioned the schools are good, but the police in Glendale are so strict, and they run a tight ship in Glendale. Yeah,
they're kind.
Yeah,
we got pulled over coming out of Cost Plus World Market for turning the wrong way. And the guy pulls us over and he says, hey, do you know why we pulled you over? And my husband's like, yeah, maybe because we pulled out the wrong way. And he's like, we just moved to Glendale, which is sort of a weird thing to say. And the guy's like, well, I'd be trying to get out of here fast too if I had all those bags in the back seat. Welcome to Glendale. Have a great day. And I'm like, I can get down with this. But also Glendale, if I'm not mistaken, has one of the lowest crime rates in California.
It really does. I think the police take a lot of pride. I think I'm on I think it's their Twitter or something. They'll post like busts that they do, or they're strict. When Clark and I first moved here, we got pulled over in Glendale. And they had us sit on the side of the road while they searched the car because I had Yukon license plate. And I feel like nobody knew where that was.
Right.
And they were just like, well, I don't know. This is weird. Like, we've never seen those license plates in Los Angeles before. Especially not in Glendale. There's something going on. So they pulled us over and they searched the car. And then in the back, they found like a box of Clark's band CDs. And he's like, oh, you're in a band. And then proceeded to talk to Clark about his band for about 30 minutes and asked for a signed CD.
See?
Went on their way.
They're strict, but they're kind.
Yeah.
Community-wise, it's very kind. I've been very happy there. I talk to my neighbors all of the time. When we first moved in the first night, they all brought us something.
Aww.
We got a bottle of wine, chocolates, and somebody gave us a little directory with all of their phone numbers and their children's numbers, their grown children's numbers in case we had an issue. We could call their kids and their kids would come help us.
That's amazing.
The Wonder Years.
Yeah, it's the Wonder Years. But what's crazy is it's in the middle of Los Angeles, and I feel like I'm back in Ohio.
Right. But it's also close to everything. You're close to Hollywood. Yes. You're close to the Valley. You're close to, no matter where you want to go, Glendale is pretty central.
Yes.
You're just a few minutes away from Los Feliz. So Glendale is a great location. Also, I had a client buy there, and with their house was a carriage house. An original carriage house, and they restored it, which I just think is so sweet. At the time, there was horse-drawn carriages.
Yes.
So you needed a carriage house.
It's wild.
Okay,
it's
so
wild.
If you are looking in Los Angeles where to buy, we know Glendale is a place that you should not overlook.
No, I've got another one. And I think you guys may have touched on this, but, and I always say, go where the realtors go. Right? Where the realtors go is where you probably should be looking. And I just bought an investment property in Boyle Heights.
Okay, we're going to come right back and talk about Boyle Heights because that's another one that I think is I think you can get a great deal, and I think the prices are going to go up in Boyle Heights. So we will be talking about that. Here's a buyer's tip. People make communities great. And if you are buying in a neighborhood, personally, I think it's a great idea to do some volunteer work within the community. See if there's a local Boys and Girls Club, a community garden, anything you can do to help out in a community. It'll make you new friends. You'll learn more about the community. You will meet your neighbors, and it's always good to give back. Okay, Kenya. So we've talked about Glendale.
Yes.
What other areas in Los Angeles do you think are a good buy for maybe someone that can't afford an $800,000 house?
Boyle Heights.
I love Boyle Heights.
Yes, Boyle Heights is the place to be, in my opinion. I was working in the Arts District, and I have no idea why. I guess I had to drive through Boyle Heights to get to the Arts District. However, I was getting there. And I was thinking to myself, I was just kind of watching the people walk along, and it seems like there's a lot of action happening there. And I thought, well, maybe I'll pick up something in Boyle Heights. And I started looking, and I discovered it kind of reminds me of Echo Park. Are you guys familiar with Hollenbeck Park?
Yes.
Yes. Hollenbeck Park, 4 minutes from Arts District, really great pricing on properties, beautiful park. There's swans on the lake. Wasn't shady at all. They're starting to build a few new things there. There's a coffee shop. There's a 7-Eleven. But the point is it's 4 minutes from the Arts District.
Yeah. It's an incredible location. So I have some clients that bought there, I guess a year and a half ago, and kind of crazy story, but we were looking in other areas. I met them. They contacted me and said, we found the house that we want to buy. And it was in Highland Park, and it was 600 square feet, and it was crazy expensive. And they walked me through it, and it was staged and beautiful and pretty and painted Swiss coffee with a green tree in the corner. And I was like, I really think that you guys have a lot of growing to do as a couple, as a family, I think this house is going to be really small for you in 2 years.
You are a great realtor.
So, we talked about it, and I said, I also think this house had a lot of issues. I was worried about the structure. I personally didn't think it was a great buy. So I mentioned that to them. I said, I know I'll support whatever you want to do, but I think there are better houses out there for you that you're going to be really happy in a couple of years that you bought. So we started looking at other places, and they eventually bought a beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, big 3-bedroom in Boyle Heights with a yard and a garage. And they love it.
Yes.
They love it. And they say they are so, so, so happy that they didn't buy that first house.
Absolutely. This is why you're a great agent, because
Why, thank you.
our job is not just to find a house. Sometimes our job is to stop you from making a bad home decision.
It's so true. And it can happen.
Yes.
People get dazzled by the smoke and mirrors.
Or they get tired and they give you this, meh, this'll do.
Right.
And I always tell my clients, I don't do meh. I just don't. You love it, or we're not playing ball.
Yeah. You love it, or there is a better house out there for you.
Yep.
I agree.
So I'm so glad that they're in Boyle Heights because, I always use the term sleep on, but people are sleeping on Boyle Heights.
I think it's so undervalued
It
for
is
the
so
types of
undervalued.
houses you get.
Yeah.
I was just curious if you had an update on the bridge.
So, as a matter of fact, they sent a letter about the bridge.
What's the bridge? Tell everyone what the bridge is.
So the bridge is essentially, they're redoing a bridge to connect Boyle Heights to downtown, I believe. And the letter just basically said, just so you know, since you're in this neighborhood, you need to be aware of this bridge. And I think it's going to be a walking and driving bridge.
So I think one of the problems historically with Boyle Heights is that it gets really congested. It's hard to get in and out in certain times. And the bridge is another reason why it's a great buy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because they're putting in this new bridge, they're spending millions and millions of dollars, and it's going to just make a new route in there.
It's exciting. I think, Boyle Heights is a really interesting community. There's a lot of history. And we talk a little bit, we've talked on this show before about gentrification.
I was just going to say, can we delve into the history and why I think people have been afraid of Boyle Heights?
I think so. I think it's a really important topic because with, multi-generational families and what I also don't, it's really hard for us as realtors because we want our clients to discover communities. We don't want people to come in and displace people that have been there for generations. And it's a really tough kind of push and pull, getting people into homes that they can afford, not displacing residents that have previously been in there. And I do feel like there's a way to blend. But what are your thoughts on that, Kenya?
Sure. As a woman of color myself, one of the things that I value is educating other people of color, and especially my buyers of color, and making sure that they understand that buying is the best rent control.
100%.
Period. So what I want to see families of color do is purchase in the neighborhoods that they love. That's, and there are a lot of neighborhoods in Los Angeles where we have this conversation. Leimert Park, Ladera Heights, Boyle Heights, Echo Park. These are conversations that we should make sure that people are educated. And if they can buy, then they should.
100%. And
that is huge.
A lot of people, I think, are scared as well of prices, but aren't educated maybe on what their payments would be. Because in a lot of situations, the mortgage payment would actually be less than the rent.
Yes. And also, I think a lot of people don't think that they're capable of it because their parents weren't homeowners, or they've been told or taught that they're not capable of purchasing. And my favorite thing to do is to open someone's eyes to the fact that they are perfectly capable of purchasing a home.
Well, another thing I don't think people think that much about is the opportunity to buy a house and maybe have roommates. So when my husband and I bought our house, we were broke musicians. We didn't have a lot of money. We did have some savings. We decided not to have a wedding. Instead, we used some of the money that would have gone to a wedding for the down payment. We had roommates for 5 years, and those roommates, ironically, CP in the control room was one of those roommates. But we had roommates for 5 years that overpaid our mortgage. Now, would we have preferred maybe it just to be the two of us? Well, maybe he would have. I don't. I love being around people all the time. Clark's a little bit more, he's a little more quiet. He likes quiet, but I loved having roommates. But we were able to overpay our mortgage because of that. And I think that's an option a lot of people don't look into. In your 20s, in your 30s, even if you are in a couple, sometimes it's hard living with other people. But if you can get into a property and your tenants that are also your roommates can help you with a mortgage, that can be a way to buy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I tell a lot of my clients to look into multi-units, a duplex or a triplex, because what they don't understand is that rent can offset their mortgage as well.
And it can help you qualify for a bigger mortgage.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad we're discussing Boyle Heights. We're going to come back on the next episode. Kenya's going to stay. We're gonna have a lot more input from Kenya. As you can tell, Kenya and I, we like to talk. We have a lot to say.
To gab.
We have a lot to say. Justin is a great listener.
Thank you, Justin.
Also, always has lots of wise words. But Kenya and Justin, thank you guys so much for being on the show. We're going to jump and we'll do another podcast right after this. Thank you out there for listening. Thank you for the support. Thank you for making it through the pandemic. It's been quite a trip. But if you have not looked into Boyle Heights or Glendale, I want you to check those areas out. Thanks again for listening to the LA Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Skelton, and look at the podcast notes for contact info. If you have any questions, please send them to the show and we'll address them on another episode. Thanks for listening.